tell the audience about how you got started in real estate.
Welcome to the Masters in Real Estate podcast with your host, Tanner Webster.
Give me the full story on how you got into the real estate development space.
Yeah, I went to school for civil engineering. I did a concentration in geotechnical engineering and got out of school, worked for a consulting firm, multidisciplinary civil engineering consulting firm, and I was in the geotech department. And it was great experience getting in at that level because in geotech, you do a lot of construction management. You're on active construction sites all the time, retaining walls, concrete, foundations. So it was, roads, bridges. So it was really good experience on just a lot of different large scale construction projects. And then around 2010, had an opportunity to jump into the transportation group within that company as they just had a need there. And I got into more structural bridge and dam design. Yeah, I got my PE license at that time and realized I didn't want to be an engineer anymore.
Yeah, of course.
I was doing more office work and less being on construction sites as I moved up, the ranks in engineering. So I ended up finding a job with a real estate developer who had a need for a lot of infrastructure construction management. So it was a kind of a natural fit. And I told him I eventually wanted to, get into vertical construction management and more of the development side of things. And it was great because I, walked right into millions of dollars of construction that needed to be built, needed to be bought out, needed to be managed. And I had the background for that. And meanwhile, I was getting the education from the other guys in the office that were working on the vertical projects. So that's where I've been since 2014 now. Built hotels, multifamily, for sale condo, live music venue. So all sorts of different things.
What do you think is the hardest of those to build? Is it the high-rise condos?
Condo, and then HOA transition is the hardest thing.
What do you mean HOA transition?
Because I guess when you build the project as a developer, you're the only seat in the HOA as more buyers come in and now they overtake you. There's a transition process so that the building is now owned by the HOA and no longer you as a developer. And that just takes a long time. Talk about punch lists forever.
Yeah. I was going to say that there's punch lists for like 9 years in the US or something, right? So Have you had a lot of experience? Like, I guess you started doing those in 2014. Condo defect laws are a pretty common hindrance to a lot of condo development, at least in Utah and across most of the US. Have you ran into that a lot, or are you figured out a way to mitigate that issue?
I don't think anyone's ever figured it out.
Yeah.
So it's just an ongoing thing. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to just simulate a project for you as my owner's rep and just help me avoid all the pitfalls that occur in construction. So let's say I get an acre under contract in West Valley and I want to build 20,000 square feet of industrial stuff. So we're going to do our initial testing, like our phase one geotech, that type of stuff. And then we're going to work together on procuring GC and an architect. So how do you suggest that we go about that? Are you a fan of design bid or design build?
Yeah, I'd probably start actually with the civil a little bit first.
Perfect. That makes sense given your background.
Yeah, and just get the project constraints laid out. If there's any wetlands on site, easements, title restrictions, zoning. So that was kind of be like my first step. Go through that process before an architect was really even be involved, especially for an industrial project.
And how do you choose that? Are you looking for someone who's specifically done this type of design for industrial, or do you think those civil engineers can kind of bridge the gap, whether they had a lot of experience in a specific asset type or anything?
Yeah, I would say local civil engineer would be the first thing I'd look for, someone who may be in that jurisdiction already or nearby. For a site, 1 acre industrial could be a single civil engineer with his own shop under his own name, all the way up to a multidiscipline firm in the area that has a lot of experience in all the different asset classes.
Okay. And so would you say that the civil engineer is going to lay out the initial site plan, or do you have the architect do that?
I would have civil probably take the first crack at it. On industrial, it'd be different if it was a hotel or multifamily
Yep.
or something.
Okay, so we got our initial site plan. That looks good. Then we're going to start working towards architecture. And so I guess back to that first question, would you do design build or would you do design bid?
All my experience has really been in design, bid, build. Not to say that that is the right way to approach that project specifically. It's just that's where I've, kind of had the most experience.
Okay, so we'll say we do design, bid, build. So we're going to hire our architect. Is it kind of a similar process to the civil engineering? Like, want to see experience over there? How does that look for you?
Yeah, and I think in industrial, I don't know that they have to be so specific to that area, but maybe more experience in that asset class, I would say.
Okay, so we start working with the architect. How early, if you've done design, bid, build, how early are you getting maybe subs involved in design feedback, or how do you take it from there?
So if you don't have any pricing from previous projects, you'd want to reach out to subs earlier. If you have any pricing from previous projects, I would just apply those really until you get to like 50% CDs, because subs don't always have all the imagination to put it all together. So if you show them a very schematic set, you can get a very high price.
Of course. Okay. And so how far along do you think you need the drawings before you start talking to general contractors?
A general contractor, as opposed to subs, I think has a little bit more imagination. So maybe like, schematic set of drawings, you have a conversation with them. But again, they're going to be very conservative on any numbers that they're giving that early in design. Really, if you had other people who have built that product, that would be the best folks to talk.
As far as like developers, or what do you mean?
Yeah, to get pricing on it. So if you had a GC who was built, if you found a GC that was building that somewhere else and they're, paving the parking lot already, they're pretty much ready to go. That's the guy to talk to, and he'll give you, this is what this project cost. So you can apply
just
that
like a high level project. Yeah. Okay. And then how do we decide? Let's say we're 50 or 60% of the way through the construction drawings. How do we select that general contractor?
Yeah, so that's when I'd put together a bid package to send out, and that would include drawings, the specs, and then the scope of work that's very clearly spelled out what their scope includes and what it doesn't. So the gray areas, typically like utility connections and coordination with utility companies, that's typically on the owner. So you'd spell out you're bringing the utilities to, or the utility companies bringing the utilities to on your behalf, and we're there grabbing that and bringing it the rest of the way. So that scope of work would be super specific to the project, call out details on plans, get into the weeds. So that bid package, I'd put together, then I'd start calling all the GCs that are on my bid list. So I would have, again, driven around, found GCs that are building this, found websites of GCs that built this type of product or capable of it, create my own bid list, create all my documents, then start calling them, telling them where my project is, where I'm at right now, when I'm going to go to construction. And then you would get them to bid on the project, and then once you have the bids in, then you're going to hold de-scope meetings to walk through the bid, make sure they actually bid on the thing that you gave them. And obviously there'd be a site walk in there and other things you could do before you get their bids back to make sure they're engaged. And after the de-scope meeting, you would level out the bids. So you'd fill in the blanks of what bidders provided what, put in allowances for things that you didn't even realize that you're going to need, that 2 bidders called out and 2 other bidders didn't. And once you have your leveled bids, then you can make a decision.
Yeah. And how many do you think you interview for the project? Do you think it kind of depends on the project, or is it like no more than 3 or no more than 5 or something like that?
Yeah, I like to go out to about 6. 6 is a good number because 3 aren't even going to follow through and give you a bid.
Yeah. Okay. And are there any like qualitative aspects other than price? Because I feel like a lot of developers just go with the lowest bid, and it ends up biting them in the ass. What else are you looking for on that?
Yeah, so I always look at it through 3 different lenses, and that's budget, schedule, and quality control. So I would in the D-scope meetings, I would kind of go over their quality control plan. How are they staffing the job? Is the GC sending one super there twice a week? Because that doesn't cut it for me. How are they handling deliveries? Are they closing the road? Are they do they have a lay down area? Like what's their plan, right? They're the ones that are professionals at building things. So that's where I kind of lean on the quality control schedule. I have my schedule that I'm anticipating. Is this the schedule that you can meet? What do you need in order to meet that schedule? Do you need temp electric? And we need to work on getting temp electric to the site beforehand. So things like that are part of like the D-scope meetings where, you get to learn about your job through their lens. And I think that's really useful because again, we say the GCs, never plan appropriately, never give us the right numbers. And they say the owners never set me up for success. They have all these wild dreams of their building and how it's going to be done. And it's impossible to meet their schedule or their demands. So it's a two-way street and just trying to get on the same page.
Yeah. And on that note, it's a 20,000 square foot industrial building. Mm-hmm. It feels like a full-time super, full-time project manager, and full-time project engineer is probably excessive. How do you determine like how you staff that project? Are you just going based off of what the general contractor is saying?
Yeah, so you're probably talking to the owner of the GC company or the lead estimator. So that's probably the audience you have during the bid process. For a project that small, it'd be a good question to ask them. I would say you would not need those 3 personnel on site, but typically they would be able to staff it with a super that's also like good on computers, they'll say. Or
those are rare.
Or they'll have a project manager that can handle the guys in the field, right? And you're going to get some sort of a hybrid, and then they have the back office help with the accounting. Because maybe the accounting person back at the office that never goes on site is just really good with the pay apps and controlling the subs. It's all the subs that they use for all their projects. So you're going to get all that back end accounting help. Typically might fall on the project manager in the field, but now he's not dealing with that and he's able to handle the site supervision.
Okay. And are you interviewing like the proposed superintendent and proposed project manager for your project? Or do you think it's like they might leave and it doesn't matter that much? Or how do you look at that?
We would, through, after the D-scopes, if we settled on like kind of like our 2 top picks could kind of go either way based on a number of different things. We'd probably visit a job site that their current staff that they'd put on our project is currently working on and kind of walk that job site. So that's like the extended interview process. If you're on a project site with your potential future GC and you get a warm, fuzzy feeling about everything that's going on that site, it's clean. The parking area is shown. There's no smoking signs everywhere. It gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling. And then you meet the super or the project manager. I think that's like the last step. And again, if you have 2 best and finals that are very tight, that site visit might be the thing that sets you over the top with one or the other. And it's not really price at that point. And you can still always negotiate price. It's the higher bidder. Like, I want to give it to you, but my budget's here. Can you meet me halfway? There's still opportunity to negotiate.
And how do you get their prices lower? Because a lot of the time it's just sticks and bricks and there's not a lot of movement there. Are you going with like, hey, go find a cheaper plumber, your plumbing number is too high, or how do you navigate that?
So there's a little bit of fluff in their numbers, right? From plumbing to concrete to whatever. You could say, listen, I want to open out a buyout savings line item. Let's be very open book about this process. You're going to go bid it to your 2 favorite plumbers. We save $50K. It opens up a new buyout savings line item that, it's above and beyond the contingency that's already in the project. And now we could split that. We can share that at the end of the job. So if we get good buyout savings, we run a tight job. We make decisions quickly. We don't have a lot of change orders. We have contingency to cover things that we didn't anticipate anyway. We end up saving $250,000. That's split between me and you, shared savings. That'd be a way to incentivize them to get a strong buyout and be a little bit more open book on the process.
So do you always do a cost plus contractor, or are you ever doing stip sum or fixed fee?
Yeah, we've done, obviously GMP is typically required when there's debt involved. We've done cost plus on kind of large scale renovation projects where we didn't really know what we were getting into once we started peeling back the onion. So cost plus was effective there. Lump sum, we've done for like small jobs, say sub 3 million. But yeah, we've done all of them. I do like cost plus on renovations and things that are very design heavy, where your design team's heavily involved, making finish choices and decisions, and you want to make the best product. Probably not an industrial warehouse would be where you run into that. You'd have drawings and you go with the GMP, get a little bit of debt.
We'll say we selected our contractor. It's ABC Construction Company. How are we working with them throughout the process? Like, we've got to get a contract together. What do we care about on that? Obviously, if they go 9 months over schedule, there's got to be some liquidated damages or something like that. How do you think about that aspect?
Yeah. So, we'd get the basic, GMP agreement together. Any attorney that you talk to would have the owner friendly version of the GMP. So you'd start there. You'd get some pushback along the way. Liquidated damages is something that, we've always tried to negotiate for the highest liquidated damage we get. In reality, it's kind of tied to the fee, I find, on the project. If a GC is getting 3% fee, above and beyond their staffing and everything else, so that's just their straight profit. While they're protective of it, that's the area that you can go after and be like, listen, we're taking a lot of risk here, putting all our eggs in your basket and getting us to the finish lines. That's the fee that we're going to go after. As much of that as you can try to get back on a day for day, liquidated damages claim is what you're going to try to negotiate for.
Yeah. Okay. And I've found, like, in the middle of the project, maybe 60% of the way through, it's hard to get a lot of leverage on the GCs, because if they leave, you're kind of toast. Like, nobody wants to take over a half-built project. Nobody wants to do any of the punch-out work. So how do you maintain leverage throughout that situation?
Yeah, so that would be like subcontractor default insurance on the subcontractors. So like SDI, a big GC isn't going to want to walk away from a job, because then they'll never get insurance on the next job, because you're going to go after their insurance.
Okay, that's good to know. I wish I would have done that a few years ago.
Yeah. So good contractors have the lowest insurance rates because the insurers,
they know they're good for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Prove it out over time. So,
okay. At this point in the process, we've selected our contractor. We're going to work. How involved are you in the selecting the subcontractors? Like, you've got these 3 bids and they say, this guy's really good, but he's really expensive. This guy's really cheap, but he's kind of flaky. Are you involved in that process, or are you leaving that up to the general contractor?
Yeah. So I always sit in on best and finals, probably from like the top 2 or 3 subcontractors for each trade. And again, that's like the B-scope meeting for tile or for concrete. And now you're getting to learn again about your project at like a deeper level from how the subcontractor is looking at it, and really understand what they're going to be doing for you down the road. So I always sit on those. I do trust the GC to kind of make a recommendation for who it's going to be, but I also have the ability to override that and be like, I think we need to go with this guy because he's the only one providing the on-spec cabinets, and we're under budget. So like, I don't know why we're trying to lower the spec on the cabinets when we have what we want on budget.
Yep.
And that's, I think, where the quality control comes into play as the owner, because you're the one that's going to be living with this for a long time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've selected the contractor, we've selected the subs, we're about to start the project. Let's just talk about project management. We'll start groundbreaking. What are we doing after that?
Yeah. So, from a meeting schedule standpoint, I have my bi-weekly owner, architect, contractor to OAC meeting. So that's bi-weekly, where we cover RFIs, submittals, anything that's going on in the job that kind of needs, some feedback from the design team. Could be something with the inspections that the building inspector brought up, and we need, a professional way. So that's the bi-weekly. I'm walking the job personally, probably every other day or every day, depending on what's going on site. And then we also will be, I'll have weekly meetings with ownership to kind of just digest everything that's going on site, buyout, progress, lender walks, once a month with the pay apps. So you're just kind of like rolling through everything at that point.
And what are you looking for when you're walking through this? Is it just quality control, or what are you looking for when you're walking the project?
Yeah, it's a schedule, it's quality control. When you're doing these like 2 weeks, so you start the GMP, you have this big long schedule, right? 20 pages long, Gantt chart. It's great, right? It gets you to contract, it gets you to where your CO is going to be at the end of the day. But really, I like to break that down into like this 2-week look ahead that you're doing throughout the project. And you're kind of always looking to see like what you can pull forward, because the schedule was set up kind of in a vacuum. And now that you're on site and making decisions and things are moving faster than anticipated, other things are moving slower than anticipated, you kind of use that 2-week look ahead to be like, okay, well, who's the subcontractor we have to call now? Like elevators might be able to go earlier than we ever thought. Like, let's call the elevator guy, see if you can start 3 months earlier. You have temp power, finish the shafts, like got a roof. So there's always decisions like that that you're making throughout the process. And that's where I use the 2-week look ahead. And if you're not walking the site regularly, you're not going to be well aware of where the progress is.
Yeah. Okay. And are there any like specific points of the construction where you're looking for specific items? Like they just did the plumbing. Are you looking for specific items in that plumbing? That's kind of a bad question, but I guess
so rough plumbing, they'll lay out plumbing in the slab, let's say. And then when the framers come and put the chalk lines down, I'm definitely checking to make sure that they actually hit the walls that they anticipated to hit.
Yeah.
The toilets are, 12 to 16 inches off the back wall, things like that. Yeah, that's definitely something. You walk in the super with a tape measure and be like, where did we screw up? What's wrong? How can we fix it quickly and it not be a schedule impact down the road?
And one thing I've found is once the schedule, like if you can get the schedule going, and it's an object in motion stays in motion.
Yeah.
But as soon as you like slow down that schedule, everything just gets completely messed up. So how do you manage if the schedule gets busted? How do you get back on track?
Yeah. So I would say that the easiest way to mess up your schedule is to be slow on payment. I am a little bit nuts about my pay apps and the schedule every month. So right now, the project that I have under construction, I walk with the lender the first Tuesday of every month. So that sets the schedule for payments, which means the prior Tuesday is when I get my pencil rec from the GC so that I have a chance to review it, walk the site with the project manager in case anything's totally out of whack, and get that back to them, to accounting, so that they can edit it appropriately. And I have a qualified pencil rec by the time the lender comes the following Tuesday.
And what is a pencil rec?
Yeah, so it's basically they just put everything together from the subcontractors. So I'm not looking at the general conditions at all, not looking for lien waivers. It's like the quick concrete, electric, all the subcontractors, their pay apps and how they feel like they should be paid for this month. And then we go review that. So
I've always found that they want like 10% more than they should probably get. How much pushback do you give them?
I gave them all the pushback.
I get. I was hoping that's the right answer. So.
Yeah. And especially early in the job, just set the tone, be like, nope, real quick. Yeah. And I would say early in the job, you set the tone with everybody and then you don't have to deal with it for the rest of the project.
Okay. So other than just paying quickly, how else are you managing the schedule to make sure? Because at the end of the day, projects need to be on time and on budget with also some good quality control. So with the schedule, how else are you making sure that people stay? How do you get them to show up and how do you get them to not leave early?
Yeah. So it's really, it's a 2-week look ahead. So that's the things that are right in front of you. And that's the long lead items that you have to track throughout the projects. I mean, everybody has been complaining about switchgear for the last couple of years since COVID. Switchgear is just, 52-week lead time is what I got quoted at the beginning of our project. And I was like, okay, well, do you need a deposit? Send us a deposit the next pay app. Like, just let's get going. Yep. So long lead items need to be tracked. And that's where, again, the big picture schedule is very useful in identifying, like, I need this by Christmas. I need this by Memorial Day. And I tend to just think in holidays when I'm looking at the schedule. I don't know why. It just helps for everybody. So like when I'm on site this week, I'm like, what can we get done by Labor Day? Where are we going to be standing? What floor are we going to be standing on? We're all going away for Labor Day weekend to feel good about all this. And, all the things that come up with the holidays and planning ahead from those as like our big milestones. So it's definitely a 2-week look ahead, who we can pull forward, who we can do a walk with this week so that they do actually start in 2 weeks, which means like materials on site in 2 weeks, not like they show up and they don't know what to do. Long lead items would be, like I said, the other thing that we track. And then just, pulling forward whatever we can.
Okay. And so we covered the schedule. What about the budget? How do you make sure that the budget doesn't get completely destroyed?
Yeah. So in the 2-week look aheads, I do go through the current outstanding items. What I track the budget on is an ACR, anticipated cost report, and then my NOC log. So NOC, we notice a change. There's going to be changes. Those changes are going to be for all sorts of different reasons. I classify them. I just wrote it down before our meeting just so I didn't miss any. I classify changes as owner scope changes, architect and engineer errors and omissions, back charges, field conditions, unpurchased scope, and construction errors. So it's like those are the changes that happen on a job site. Whatever it is can kind of be classified under one of those 6 categories. And there's typically a budget or a schedule impact associated with that. So, an owner scope change is pretty straightforward. We said we wanted white toilets. We decided we wanted gold plated toilets instead. And owner changes mind. There's a change order involved in that. And there's obviously contingency within any project budget. And also when you're buying out, that's where I mentioned the buyout savings before, like that incentivizes everybody in the project to buy out below where the GMP is and use those to maybe pay for some of these architect, engineer errors and omissions, which are typically at the contingency line item, but now, maybe we don't have to. The owner wants to upgrade certain things throughout the project, as long as they're making their decisions in a timely fashion, shouldn't really impact anybody. And then the general contractor wants to deliver the project. So that's kind of where we classify different things. Unpurchased scope, I do try to buy in allowances for different things that may be necessary in the future. So unpurchased scope, you might buy out an allowance. Say we're just doing an apartment building now. We want to increase the size of the shower niches because who doesn't like a really good size?
Yeah, of course.
We didn't like that. So we were under budget on tile, and then we just threw in an allowance after the bid to potentially, double the size of those. So that's an allowance now sitting between me and the GC that if we go and build the model unit early and we put that in one of the showers and we love it, then we can assign that allowance to that throughout the road.
Okay. And on the change orders with architects and engineers, have you ever gotten like they mess up so bad that you can actually back charge the architect and engineer? I feel like that hasn't really existed in my experience.
I feel like we've never successfully done that. We've gotten them to do work for free. That's for sure.
That's a good trade. That's better than my experience.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about schedule, budgets, and quality. We'll talk about quality control. How do you manage that? Is it just come down to the subs, or what are you doing specifically to maintain?
Yeah, and I would say quality control is so all encompassing. There's really not a great definition for it. I think, again, me having a civil engineering background, I kind of come at it from quality control is getting your cylinder brakes back and have the guy there, measuring the rebar, making sure all that is right. And you're passing your rough plumbing inspection. Like, I think that's what most people think of as quality control. But, to me, it's even just like the amount of communication between you, GC, owner, lender, like that is quality control, that everybody's on the same page. Outside of the GMP, getting the utilities to the site, managing FF&E on the side. And, that's something that's not in construction management agreement, yet you need to deliver that for the owner to have a project that actually works, because otherwise people will move into an apartment building with no amenities. Yeah.
Okay. So we've gone through anything else that we should be doing during the project on this, or we can say we've wrapped up construction and now we're doing like the final punch out. Like, how do we go about that to make sure that, oh, there aren't these huge errors and we've already paid all the subcontractors?
Yeah, so we hold 10% retainage on all subs until punch lists are complete. We'll go down to 5% retainage, at some level of punch list completion, or very trade dependent. So you're really holding retainage is kind of the only thing that you have for the project. And then budgeting probably a little bit of something on the side that you could take care of things on your own with your own crews as necessary.
Okay. And should have asked this earlier, are you using any specific software throughout this project? Like when you're walking around documenting all this stuff, are you uploading this into like Procore or Buildertrend or something like that?
Yeah, our GC uses Procore, so I get the Procore account with them. Punch lists are managed through Procore. I keep my own ACR outside of Procore. They have one within Procore, but again, I have different budget line items for different things outside of that. So I'm managing the more of the entire project and not so much like sub by sub. So really Procore and then just my Excel files is really all the software I'm using.
Construction's been pretty difficult over the last 4 years, I would say. And I've seen a lot of groups bring construction in-house. How have you seen that gone, and would you recommend?
It's a loaded question. Yeah, I mean, we've been very successful using CMs for large projects. Personally, GC small projects, I think I use that number like 3 million, kind of like sub 3 million, as like retail fit outs and like small building expansions on our existing assets, and like things that are like large CapEx projects for an existing asset. But I've just self-managed those. It's a good experience, especially earlier in my career. So I was the super, I was the PM, I was the owner's rep, everything. So it was a really good experience. And I still think, under 3 million, very straightforward to do, especially if you're not full, mission critical type stuff. Again, these are like white box retail fit outs and other types of things. So I would say in-house to that extent, no issue. Going out, self-performing on a $50 million project or something, there's a lot of staff. You just need a lot of staff. So for that to kind of come together from a small development team, it sounds like it would take a lot of time.
Okay. Cool. Well, this has been fun. I learned a lot. I wish I would have listened to this podcast before I started my first project.
No, I appreciate it. I love everything you're doing here with the podcast and educating others, and certainly look forward to meeting you at Reconvene. And
I forget we haven't met in person. So
yeah,
cool. All right, looking forward to it.
All right, thanks, Tanner.